All right, everyone good?
Good to go.
Jack, Hudson? All right, holy crap, dude. It's been like 10 months. And like the last time I actually did this, Jack, it was with you.
Yeah.
You're the last one that I did. And Hudson, we've done one before, but no one saw you. That just did audio. So now
All right, it's probably better that no one saw me that day.
probably. But how is everyone? I know it's been nuts for me this past couple of months, which obviously my delay off everything. I'm gonna get into that later. Well, not in this episode, like a future episode. But how is everybody? How we doing?
I'm good. I'm at the beach right now with some family, and we're staying in Seagrove. We're not in Seaside, but we're just kind of 5 minutes down the road from it. But I'm gonna be here till Wednesday, and then after I get back from there, it's back to reality and back to work. Right, Connor?
Yep.
Exactly.
I'm supposed to work this weekend, but I don't even know when. But
Yeah.
let's talk.
So
Let's
far,
talk
so
some.
good.
Let's talk some combat sport, a little fighting.
All
It's
right.
been
okay.
it's been pretty interesting these last couple of weeks. Or obviously 274 UFC 274 was a few weeks ago, and that card was spectacular. I mean,
Banger,
that was
banger.
Banger.
Hudson,
100%.
turn your volume down like a little bit because you're kind of like
I got you.
screaming in my ear.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's better. All right, so 274. I mean, crap, I don't even know where to begin. Hudson, I know you don't want to start off with Tony because I know I know you're a big Tony guy, and
Love Tony, man.
Everybody loves
that was really as much as Tony's like he's solidified himself in the company as he's a great for sure, and I hated to see how he got brutalized that bad. I mean, because that was
Killed me. It killed me, man.
that was really hard to watch. But I mean, just one of the most, I mean, arguably one of the most vicious
Violent knockouts.
I've ever seen.
Yeah.
knockout of the year. Yes.
100%.
So far.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
So far.
yeah, absolutely. It's that. I mean, the kick, and then like when you go back and look at his face and just like how like mushed together everything was.
He looked like Frankie Edgar.
Yeah.
Yes,
I was just
yes,
about to
he
say,
did.
look at the
Yeah.
picture when Marlon Cheeto Vera kicked him in the face, the front kick. It's the
Same face.
exact. Oh God, that was bad. That was
And
bad.
and so Hudson, we talked about this before we started recording. We said how Tony, after this, he's got to take a little time off, take a little time to heal, and because it's hard to come back after getting victimized like that. So
Oh, yeah.
he's definitely got to and find somebody that he'll fight, and that's a good matchup for him. And I thought him and Chandler was great. I mean, I thought that was that's a really well put together fight. Hold on, I'm gonna change this view real quick.
So
There we go.
the thing about Tony is that like I think he needs a better tune-up fight for when he comes back. He needs to wait another year, take a
100%.
gap in between. Don't try to jump up in the ranks fast because Michael Chandler is incredible. Like he's amazing. There's no disputing that. I thought it was
He's so good.
I kind of thought it was a bad idea from the start for him to jump right into Michael Chandler, but he looked amazing the first round. Like he
Yeah.
looked like he did back
He
in like
did look good.
2016. He looked great. I mean, other than him getting kicked in the face, 17 seconds into the second round, and he looked like he was winning the freaking fight.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Oh yeah.
Looked good.
That caught me by surprise. And I heard some people talk about on Twitter that he's on a 4-loss streak, and they needed to just cut him, send him down to Bellator, whatever. He's one of the biggest superstars on their payroll and brings in
Yeah.
more money than hardly anybody else other than McGregor, Kamaru Usman, Justin Gaethje. The dude's a bona fide superstar. I mean, they're idiots to cut him from the roster, I think.
Yeah, I don't understand why those kind of rumors were flying around. I remember hearing something like that. Yeah, like you said, Jack. Yeah, he's I mean, he's a legend in the sport. I mean, he's done so much. Besides the fact that we never got him and Khabib, which
No, I've got the poster. I've got it. I've got the poster right there on my wall.
You see it hanging
Fight,
up? Yeah.
Fight that never happened.
Fight that never happened. Besides that fight not happening, I mean, he's gotten in there and he's
solidified himself. He's one of the best lightweights ever. He's top 5 for sure.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously he needs to fight. I mean, yeah, I agree with him kind of being thrown in there with a guy like Michael Chandler, who is just, vicious. I mean, he's a really big 155.
He's an animal.
He does not. When I saw him fight Tony, I mean, I was like, how is he 155 pounds? He looks like he's around 160, 170. I mean, he was huge.
Absolutely. The fact that he steps on a scale at 155 pounds blows my mind. It's like how Connor used to weigh in at 145 and he looked like a dead person. And I was like, how do you ever make that weight?
That weigh in with him and Aldo when he fought, he looked super skinny.
You could see it in his face.
That was nasty. You could see every little tendon, but it was bad.
Bad.
It was bad. That's the thing about cutting weight like that, is that most people that end up fighting in a weight class that's below what they usually fight at, when they drop they lose all that weight. They lose weight. Not only they lose weight in their face, than you were saying, they're way more susceptible to being knocked out because they don't have all that padding and they're not used. It's a totally different ball game.
Yeah.
From like 150, you wouldn't think so, like a 10-pound difference, but it really does make a difference.
Yeah, especially when one night I like to go on like these like little mini Twitter rants every now and then and talk about stuff like this. And
who doesn't?
Exactly. Twitter's like my Bible. Like literally, I'm on.
Oh, it's great. It's my favorite app.
I say some stuff on Twitter that I probably shouldn't say at 2:00 in the morning after a card, but yeah.
Yeah, but I got on there and I was talking about what was it? I was talking about like the weight jump and how difficult it is. I mean, we've seen it firsthand. I mean, have y'all seen that video of Chris Cyborg cutting weight?
She's like screaming in the bathtub.
The bathtub, it's hard to watch.
It's brutal.
And knowing that they got to go through that sort of thing, and we've seen it firsthand that people when they try to cut weight, they don't even make it. Hence Oliveira. I mean, that fight, the belt was immediately vacated, and Oliveira still fought and still won in immaculate fashion. But the whole cutting weight, it's so difficult.
It's just dangerous. It's dangerous,
especially when you take fights on short notice, and you've got like a month or so to cut down this weight, and it's extremely difficult. And that's why, in my opinion, I think that those are some of the most, those are some of the best athletes in the world, because, I mean, they've got to do the, brutal training and conditioning and, but anyways, so I was talking about the weight and how if Connor and Chandler were to fight at 170, which I think that's what needs to happen, because obviously if I were Dana, the number one fight that I would get for Connor would be him and Diaz for the trilogy.
Absolutely.
But Nate's clearly said it that he doesn't want it, or he doesn't want to fight Connor because Connor's not cool enough for him or whatever, which that's just Nate talking. I mean that's but and I was saying how, and I think how a lot of people get the whole pound for pound idea of the whole pound for pound conversation completely different. When I ask like a random person who's pound for pound number one, they're just gonna. If they're educated enough, they'll say, "Oh, probably Habib or
John Jones." Yeah.
But the thing is that maybe not John Jones, because he's fought at heavyweight and now he's going down to light heavy, or he's going up to heavyweight, hopefully to fight Stipe, which I would love to see that.
Be a hell of a fight.
But then, Connor's got knockouts in 3 different weight classes. 45, 55, and 70. That's – and I know I'm like a ginormous McGregor fan, but I just – in terms of pound for pound, which means that beating, pound for different weight classes, different divisions. I mean, and
being the best in your relative weight class. Yeah.
right.
And number one is Kamaru Usman for a good reason. But yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry. And I mean, in terms of resumes and stuff that Connor's done for the company, I mean, 3 different knockouts, 3 different weight classes, never been done before. No one's ever done that. And I mean, and that's what pound for pound really means, when you can beat a guy at 45, beat a guy at 55, and then beat a guy at 170. I think that's what pound for pound really means, that you can go in there and dance with anybody in any weight class and fight and win. So I think that's why I think, in my opinion, I just think Connor's pound for pound number 1. But
I think too.
Sorry, one of you. I was going to say, I don't know if I heard this news. This was like 3 hours ago. Nick Diaz has requested a title shot for the end of the year return against Kamaru Usman, and in his head genuinely thinks he can beat him.
No shot.
Mm-mm.
I say book it. We could use a good laugh.
Oh yeah, it'll be a bloodbath for sure.
I just don't see a point in making that fight. I mean,
I don't know if y'all could see that, but
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, I get it. Like,
it's
from
so
a business,
insane.
I know. I get it from like a business standpoint that fight makes sense, because I mean, who wouldn't want to put a Diaz brother on a main event against a champion? Like, I mean, it'll sell. I mean, I'll buy it. I mean, it's worth my money. So, I mean, obviously I'll pay for it if that fight ever happens. But like, in terms of like, obviously Nick Diaz has been fighting for, golly, I mean, he's
Forever.
I mean, and he's gotten in there with a lot of high level dudes.
Oh yeah.
I mean, arguably one of the greatest of all times, GSP.
And Anderson Silva.
Yeah, and Anderson Silva. I mean, he's gotten in there with a lot of good dudes, but like Usman is just like a different breed of fighter. I mean, he's. I mean, after what I saw him do to Jorge Masvidal, I mean, literally just punched like a pound of sweat off his face. I mean, that was.
Yeah, you got to put some respect on his name after that.
Exactly. Yeah, and Hudson, we were also talking about future GOATs, like future guys who are like, and I think Usman will be like, I mean, he's already done what he's had to do, but he can definitely do more. And so
100%.
And so I think he's a guy that like could be on like in a 10-year time, like a Mount Rushmore for MMA. I'd put him up there for sure.
It's kind of like how right now we look at like the welterweight GOAT is GSP, the middleweight GOAT is Silva. Like 10 years from now, people are going to say Usman GOAT at 170.
It's Kamaru and not GSP.
Adesanya at 185.
Adesanya. So
100%.
And that dude is and he fights next in July. He'll who is it? What was the guy's name?
Cannonier.
Cannonier.
Yeah.
Which I think that's gonna be pretty interesting. But as far as we know,
Jared Cannonier was a heavyweight when he first started?
Yes. Dude, he's heavyweight and it's cut all the way down to 185. That's crazy.
I did not know that.
He went from 2. Damn, wow, that's a lot of weight.
Well, it's kind of like how Rumble Johnson used to fight at 205 and then he fought at welterweight.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. I don't understand how they do it.
And he was huge at 170.
He was huge.
I remember who he fought. He fought somebody at 205 back in the day when Conor fought Alvarez for the 155 title. I remember who he fought.
It was Glover Teixeira, and he knocked him out like in 13 seconds.
Yeah,
sometimes
Glover Teixeira.
I watch those like embedded video. You ever seen those videos on YouTube where they do like the week of the fight and they had come out? I was watching one of those like way back for 205 and Rumble just massive. I mean, huge, and
he's massive.
But yeah, and it's so crazy how some of these guys can just jump from weight class to weight class like that. I mean, you don't see that in boxing hardly.
No.
I mean Floyd did it, but I mean that's maybe like a 10-pound weight difference.
Exactly.
Like there's so many different weight classes in boxing, and for Floyd to beat guys in multiple weight classes, I mean, and once again, I mean, Floyd's one of the greatest. He's the greatest boxer of all time. So I mean,
Oh, dang it. Not that this was like an important fight, but Paulo Costa and Luke Rockhold just got moved to 277 in August. Dang.
What were they? What card were they supposed to be on originally?
They were supposed to be on the next one.
Damn, they were supposed to be on that Glover and Yuri card.
Yeah.
Damn.
Dang. Oh well. Sheesh.
Zoom is messing up.
Are they fighting at 185 or 205?
I think they're fighting at 205 because Luke Rockhold was all over Twitter like last night because Paulo Costa can never make weight and he has excuses for every time he can't. So they were going back and forth on Twitter about it. So I think it's going to be at 185. I'm pretty sure it's 185. Yeah. Well, dang, that sucks. Have y'all been hearing all this stuff about Khabib's like alleged retire? I don't see any scenario in this would happen.
No.
But it's Daniel Cormier was talking about it. Khabib was talking about it. I think he's just messing with people because he tends to do that. And what's that guy? That analyst,
Wani
Schmo. Is that his name?
Oh yeah, the Schmo.
Schmo on Twitter.
Yeah.
Some about Khabib saying if Charles Oliveira beat Makhachev in the fight in Abu Dhabi, then Khabib would feel obligated to come back and beat Charles. But I'm not saying that's going to happen. But could you imagine?
That'd be biggest fight. That'd be a huge fight.
Insane.
And crazy. And I also heard another scenario like that, but like it's like I think it's almost bigger than Khabib versus Oliveira. And so this is completely far-fetched and like this probably will never happen like at all. But it was so say if Conor goes and fights for 155 title, which obviously that's very kind of a weird scenario because there's a lot of other guys that they want to put in there for that title fight. But say if Conor does get put in for the 155 title fight, Conor says that he wants to walk back in the UFC for a title fight.
Right.
But I don't think they're going to give that to him because I mean, and so
I don't know.
But you never know. I don't know.
It's Conor.
Yeah. So
and that's the cloudy area with Conor is that you could name 10 people that he could fight next.
Yeah,
everybody wants him to fight Nate. It makes sense. Nate doesn't like Conor said. Nate doesn't seem to want to do it for whatever reason. And for whatever reason, after every Conor fight, after every Conor card, they're always talking about, oh, he should fight Nate Diaz next. Why don't they just get it out of the way?
They need to do it.
Why don't they just run the third trilogy fight and then be done with that, and then he can fight because he needs a tune-up fight. He does.
The fight makes sense too. It's a trilogy fight. They can settle that, and then both of them need a win. They both need a big win.
It's Conor McGregor. They'll let him fight whoever he wants to fight, but it would just make perfect sense if he would just stop and think, okay, my leg got snapped into 4 different pieces my last fight. I need a tune-up. I'm going to fight Nate for the trilogy, make bank off that, take another little bit of a break, and then I can, go jump up to 170 and fight Kamaru Usman.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make sense to just jump up there and go for the 170 title. But if he let's say he just starches Kamaru Usman, just shocks the entire world, becomes the first triple champ in history, that'd be crazy. But it just doesn't make sense to do that. Not to me, at least. I mean, I don't know. I may be like missing some pieces, but I don't see. I don't know. It'd be cool, but I just don't see why.
Yeah, that'd be amazing
need to do that.
See. I think in terms of like if I was, I mean, so we were talking about like fights for Conor and like what makes the most sense. There's so many of them that just make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously
Nate,
number one,
Chandler.
Obviously number one is a trilogy with Nate because I think that's one of the biggest trilogies of all time in UFC. I mean, you got two guys
100%.
who are just like electric. I mean, Nate is such a mercurial superstar athlete. I mean, you look at him and you're like, no way this skeleton can fight. And he can. He's proven it. I mean, beat Conor probably when he was at his peak at the time. I mean, arguably his peak is when he won the 155 title, but I mean, submitted Conor in the second round, and that like shocked the world. Like no one expected that to happen at all because Conor was just on a different level of fighting at that time. And but in terms of like if I were Dana and I want a fight for Conor, and if Nate wants to do it, then obviously that's the one I'd make first because I'd make the most money. That'd probably sell a shit ton of pay-per-views. So I mean, they'll make more money for that third fight than any other championship fight will get them ever.
Exactly.
So I mean, but right now the most like relevant fight for Conor to have is with Michael Chandler.
I think the same thing.
I agree.
I mean, let Chandler play around and let him get up to 170, and I can already tell that Chandler would be a really big 170 pounder. I mean, he would be really, really big.
Yeah,
it'd be cool to see. Definitely.
So,
did you hear what Herb Dean? I'm sorry. Did you hear what Herb Dean said to Chandler after the fight with Tony? I mean, you couldn't hear on the TV, but they had the embedded crew in the octagon, and they're all mic'd up, or whatever. And Nate, Herb Dean puts his hand on Michael Chandler's shoulder, and it's like, there's no way you weigh 155. And Chandler looks at him and he's like, because that's the thing about what you were talking about with the weight cut.
Mm-hmm.
They can put that weight back on and more just as fast as they can get it off, which is
exactly.
Scary.
Yeah.
Well, it's not good for your. I mean, at weigh-in, they're weighing it at 155, 154.5, and then the next night they're up 20, 30 pounds.
Yeah,
it's insane.
It's crazy.
No, Michael Chandler. The answer to that is no. Michael Chandler did not weigh 155
in the octagon. Oh no. He was pushing probably 172, 173.
Yeah,
they were walking in there.
There were people with Conor and I. We were watching together with some friends, and like somebody was like, "He does not weigh 155," but Conor and I were like, "No, no,
I mean,
close."
And I mean, you can't do anything. I mean, because they at the weigh-in they made the weight, so I mean, there's no reason for them to stay at that weight. I mean, but I would definitely put Conor in with Chandler. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think that would definitely sell because, you know, Chandler's kind of got a little attitude. Conor's got one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just it makes sense, and I think if Conor fights Chandler and beats him, then maybe we'll talk about putting Conor in with Usman or somebody else, maybe Jorge Masvidal, somebody else in 170. Because I think Conor wants to stay at 170. He wants to fight at 170 because
I don't even know if it's a one. I just don't know if he can cut anymore. I don't know if he can cut 55 anymore.
He walks around probably 190 pounds maybe.
I mean, he's huge. He is humongous.
Yeah, he probably walks around at around 190, and getting that. I mean, Conor could definitely make the weight cut down to 155 if he had to.
He can. I just don't think he wants to.
I just don't think that's not really an idea to do. But if Conor does get in, yeah, what?
Can we talk in a minute after this? Can we talk about Dustin and Colby?
Yes, please. Please.
Yeah. That's a topic.
But I just think, the whole thing with Conor and Chandler, I mean, it makes sense. It'll sell. Put them in Vegas or something. Put them in some huge arena. Make it a spectacle, and I think it'll work. Especially if Conor wins, which is a big if, because as much as I hate to say it, I mean, he's definitely not the same guy that he was, 3-4 years ago when he was whipping guys left and right. So I mean, it's a little. He's a little bit different now, and he's been tested, with after the Khabib fight. I mean that was a scrap for him, but then after that he got in there with Cowboy, which I think the Cowboy fight that was a perfect fight for Conor to come back with. especially, coming back from such as a bad loss and all the stuff that happened after the Khabib fight. I mean, all the rushing the octagon and people throwing punches at each other. I mean, it was bad morale for both of them. And Khabib's known for being such a great guy, and I bet he is. I mean, but it's just, and I thought the Cowboy fight was perfect sense, and Conor went in there and beat him in 45 seconds, which, I mean, a lot of people might call that fight a fluke, which, I mean, all right, so that was a little hiccup.
Before y'all get started, I don't know what the issue was with my computer or yours.
Yeah, no, it was mine too, because like for Zoom, like because literally this is all I can use right now because I cannot afford a camera because they're like $1,200. So like,
I just read some crazy news, or some potentially crazy news. Brian Ortega is set to fight Yair Rodriguez for a headliner for UFC Vegas. So Yair Rodriguez just lost to Max Holloway. Ortega, who's amazing, just lost to Volk. So who does that leave for Volk to fight Max Holloway?
Well, they already have the trilogy booked.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got it booked for 277 on July 30th.
That's awesome.
That's when that's supposed to make, and that card is really, really good. We were talking about that earlier. We started off with Adesanya and Cannonier, but there's so much more going on in that card. I mean, you got the trilogy with Volkanovski and Holloway, which is the fight that I'm looking forward to seeing the most on that card.
Me too.
And then you got who else?
Sean O'Malley, and Pedro Munoz.
Which the Sugar Show is coming back. I'm a huge Sean O'Malley fan. And he's just so charismatic. I mean, it's got with all the tattoos and the wild hair. I mean, he's perfect. He's perfect for the company.
And Sean Strickland and Alex Pereira.
Yes, and
that's
Uriah
a pretty
Hill,
big fight.
Maybe.
Uriah Hill's not on it. But
no, he's
Strickland
on
fight.
276 looks good.
It's a damn good card.
That looks good.
276 is on July 2nd.
July 2nd.
277 is on July 30th. 277's got the really, really stacked card. And then 277 has that heavyweight fight, Teixeira, I think.
So for people who are listening, the main event would be Israel Adesanya and Jared Cannonier. Co-main, Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway. The rest of the main card, Sean Strickland versus Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira was the guy that knocked out cold. What was it? Flying knee.
It was twice in that kickboxing league.
Yeah. So he's fighting Sean Strickland. Misha Tate versus Lauren Murphy. Pedro Munoz.
I love Misha Tate.
Misha Tate is a beast.
I've been keeping up with her for a long time, and she's badass, and I'm really excited to see her fight again.
Yeah, and so next, Pedro Munoz and Sean O'Malley. And then you've got an oldie, but still gold, Robbie Lawler and Brian Barberena. Robbie Lawler's a bad dude. Still.
Yeah,
he's 40 years old. He's either 40 or 41. He's a bad dude. Jessica I, Macy Barber, and the list goes on. Brad Tavares is fighting.
The fight's going to be
an insane card.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely stacked. So
I'll be watching that from start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be sitting down on my couch at 5 for the prelims and not getting up until midnight when the main card's over. And
that's going to be awesome.
And a lot of people don't really like to watch the prelims or the fights before the main card, which I do, man. I do.
Prelim gang. Prelim.
There are a lot of I've seen some really, really good prelim fights, and I've seen a lot of good ones. So I think people need to invest more and give those smaller guys who don't have as much notoriety some love, because it doesn't take it takes obviously a lot to be a superstar in the UFC. I mean, you got to have everything. You got to have personality. You got to be able to fight and stuff like that. And a lot of those guys are kind of starting to find their way, and I think them people showing them a lot more attention on the prelims is pretty important.
Yeah. So is 276? Is that in Vegas, or where is that?
277 probably is going to be in Vegas. So that card is massive.
You think so?
I don't know where
276.
that Adesanya card is being fought at. I don't know where they're fighting at.
I don't think it's in.
It's either Vegas or New York. One of those two.
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
look.
Oh
But-
no, 277 is in Dallas. 276 is Vegas.
Okay. Are they fighting in T-Mobile?
Yeah, 276
Okay.
is T-Mobile in Vegas, and
Oh, hold on.
277
I'm
is-
getting so confused because 277 is the rematch between Juliana Pena and Amanda Nunes.
Yes.
yeah, Ultimate Fighter thing, right?
Which they're actually like fighting. Like they're doing the
Oh,
rematch for the title.
That's 77.
Yeah,
Yes.
276 is the
Oh.
one. 276 is with Adesanya, Sean O'Malley, all those guys. I got the dates confused.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just now seeing that.
Yeah, and
July 30th, Dallas.
yes,
Dang.
and that'll be big. But yes, 276 is completely stacked. I mean,
I've got Nunes winning. By the way, we'll talk about that another time. I've got Nunes winning.
Yeah, and that Nunes
Yeah.
fight is going to be good because I mean she is bad, man. She's really really good, but Juliana
She's
Pena
the best female fighter ever.
absolutely, and Juliana Pena just like she just starched her. I mean, just pounding with hooks and everything, and
And
I mean, it was
nobody
just-
expected it.
No
Biggest
one.
upset.
I
in UFC history.
sure as hell didn't. I expected
No.
Amanda Nunes to get in there and just do what she normally does, which is she starches her
Maul.
competition every time.
Mauls
and
her
Juliana
opponents.
Pena got in there and did and mauled her. I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, 276 is going to be really really big. One of the biggest cards of the year, I think. We've already had some really really good ones so far, but so now I kind of want to. This will be fun. So this will mean that we can talk about. So we might have done this, Jack, a while back, but I don't really remember. But I want to do it again. So it's like, so fights that could or could not, like, so dream fights, that fights that you want to see with someone who's like retired or something like that. So I'll go
I've got a
first
bunch of those.
because I've already had some written down. So I've already said this before, but obviously Nate Diaz, McGregor trilogy, that's at the top.
Yeah.
That's at the top of my list in terms of fights that I want to see. And then number 2, this is interesting: Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Cormier.
That fight should have happened.
Now
definitely should
that fight is a fight that had so much hype behind it and never happened. And now I think the main reason why that never happened was because they couldn't really figure out stuff between Brock's contract with the WWE, because I mean he's a superstar there, but I mean
And he's on a shit ton of steroids.
Yes, he
Yeah.
is. I mean, he is probably one of the largest dudes I've ever. I mean, he is built to fight. I mean, that dude is he's unbelievably big. And like when Cormier beat Stipe at 220. I don't remember which one. It was when Stipe became the champ. He beat Stipe.
Yeah.
And Brock Lesnar was there ringside, and and Brock got into the octagon, started calling out DC and everything, and that fight never happened. And DC was going on talk shows saying like he's going to be the next guy I fight and everything, and that fight just never happened. Which I mean, that's a fight that I want to see so bad. And then number 3, I got GSP and Khabib. I mean, who doesn't want it? Who doesn't?
That'd be a
want to
hell
see
of a
that?
fight. GSP versus Habib or Usman would be a hell of a fight.
I think GSP and Usman would be unreal. And then I put Chandler and McGregor, and then this is kind of switch over to boxing. I don't know if y'all keep up with boxing as much, but I'm a huge Tyson Fury guy. I think he is great. I think he's the greatest heavyweight of all time in boxing for sure.
Yeah.
So him versus Anthony Joshua, which is a fight that also should have definitely happened but never did because
with John Jones. Oh my god.
No, I'm talking about boxing, Jack.
Oh shoot! You know Anthony Joshua right in the UFC, right? Heavyweight.
Is there another Anthony Joshua? Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But Anthony Joshua, so it'd be the biggest fight in British boxing because they're both from England and.
No, I'm sorry, Connor. No, I'm confusing you. I'm sorry. That's Anthony Johnson.
Yeah,
That's
Anthony
the
Johnson.
UFC
Yeah, Anthony
heavyweight.
Johnson. Yeah.
He was supposed to fight John Jones. It's a different one. My bad.
Yeah, I'm
Getting
talking
me
boxing.
confused.
I kind of switched over to boxing for a little bit because I've, and I've talked about this before. I just said that, boxing is just, it's not, I mean, it's not what it used to be. I mean, there's not as many. I mean, right now you got, Canelo, which they just announced that trilogy fight, which I'm really excited for that. And then Tyson Fury just retired, so which apparently him and Ngannou are supposed to fight in the boxing ring, but it wouldn't be like an actual a fight that will go on your record, or just kind of like a fight just to get in.
It's an exhibition.
Like an exhibition.
Right. And he said that it would be in the boxing ring, but it would be with UFC gloves on. So and that makes
UFC rules, or
no,
boxing rules with UFC gloves.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it's like I think they called it like a hybrid fight is what they called it, something like that. But
it was like the fight that they just made with Demetrius Johnson and Rod Tang, that like Muay Thai / MMA fight. It'd be something, maybe along those lines.
Yeah. But so it'll be, I think it'll be under boxing rules, but it'll be with UFC gloves on, which is great because obviously Ngannou's got some of the heaviest. He's got the hardest punch out of anybody that throws a punch on this earth. I don't think anybody can hit harder than him.
No.
I was actually listening to a video last night, and Dana was giving like a breakdown of his punches, and like a full thrown punch is like 95 horsepower.
Yeah, he said that his like maximum punch power is getting hit by a Ford Escort going as fast as it can.
That's terrifying.
Is crazy.
That's terrifying.
And so, I mean, it's two of the biggest guys in the world at their sport. Why not make it? For me, I always think of it as like a business aspect. I don't know. I just do because that's just my mind. But like that fight will sell. That fight will make money. Like,
oh yeah,
put them in LA or something and have, everyone come down and watch. I mean, that fight will be great. I mean,
or take them to Vegas and put them in the Allegiant Stadium.
Yeah. Or
they'll sell it out.
Or in MGM.
Yeah.
Sell out the Grand. But I mean, and I think as far as athletes go, in my opinion, I think Tyson Fury should be one of the most well-respected athletes as far as all sports go. Especially for me, Hudson, we've talked about this before. I'm a huge, mental health advocate. Hudson, we've talked about this, which I'm going to do an episode about it. Just about me because I had a lot going on, but anyways, and Tyson, I have a lot of respect for him. He's done a lot for the sport of boxing, and I think he's on my Mount Rushmore for sure in terms of athletes. But there's so many guys you can put up there. But anyways, I'm getting off track. But so
that's
another thing
that's like I don't really keep up with. I didn't mean to like cut you off, but like I don't.
No, that's good.
I keep up with boxing. I'm not like into it as much as I am with like UFC. I'm just up to date with it.
Yeah, it's also because boxing's not as popular as it used to be back in the 90s when you had guys literally some of the most baddest dudes on earth. You had Tyson who knocked out guys left and right in first round. I mean, my dad would always tell me that my grandfather would buy all the pay-per-views for him. And just to be disappointed, not necessarily disappointed, but what's the point of buying this fight when he's, knocking out dudes?
He's got knocking out 8 seconds in.
Yeah. So, and have y'all seen the video of Tyson's first fight after prison, like when he got out of jail?
Who did he fight?
God, I don't know. I've got to show this to y'all. Hold on, I got.
He fought that white dude, right? That big white dude.
Yeah, who was like,
what was his name?
I was watching the video and he was like, all right, so
is this the fight where he rocks this dude and then as he's going down, he just like bangs his head like 8 more times before he even hits canvas?
I think he lands a solid like 3 or 4 more punches before he even gets to the ground.
Holy shit!
All right, so I'm
horrifying.
I'm gonna share my screen. All right, can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Look at that. I mean,
Well, all he did in jail was work out because apparently they didn't
Yeah.
have, and you can't train in jail. Like,
Hell no.
you
I
can't
mean,
box in jail.
that right there, I mean, that is just like that's peak male performance. I mean, especially
In his prime, that is the most terrifying human being that has ever walked the face of this earth in his prime.
exactly. I mean, and one thing is like I don't understand how people can people can go up and talk trash to Mike Tyson. Like you can't do that.
I was about to say
I
you
mean,
gotta be a different kind of crazy to A, accept a fight with that dude in his prime, and B, talk trash to him, let alone accept a fight with him. Like
Yeah.
let's say I'm one of the best boxers in the world back in the late '90s, right after Tyson got out of jail, and they're like, hey, we're gonna give you 1.2 just to sign the contract, and be like, no, I'd rather keep my head. No.
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is, and like when I'm scrolling through Instagram or Twitter or whatever, I get videos all the time of like Mike Tyson talking about like his like just he invented like in terms of box. I mean, obviously when you think about the guy who invented trash talk in boxing and combat sports is Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
But like Tyson was just like his mindset is just like bulletproof.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he genuinely thinks that when he goes in there that he is going to either die or he is going to kill the man who's in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
and you hear him talk online now on different podcasts.
He's great.
Shows,
he's great.
Whatever. And he's like just like
so amazing. He's such
like
a great
docile.
guy.
Like
no, and
like
he said,
tame,
and he said that he would never be that person again. That from when because he was so coked up all the time, and
oh yeah.
I mean, he would do cocaine before his fights and everything like that. So I mean, he was just bad. I mean, he was caught up in drugs a lot, and that's why. And like Mike Tyson was like, I don't think I could ever be that person again. He goes because if that person comes out, he goes, hell is coming with him, which is scary just to even have those
hear
words.
that.
Yeah. So, and in boxing, like back then, like in terms of like when Tyson was fighting Holyfield, who else? Foreman. I mean, just when you think about all the greats of boxing, all those guys who were just dominating the sport. And then like, as all those guys grew old and retired, there hasn't really been a lot of guys who live up to that name or live up to those expectations. Like when I first saw this kid, I'm sure y'all know who Ryan Garcia is. Y'all know Ryan Garcia.
Yeah.
I like Ryan Garcia, but I'm impressed with his. I mean, he's very talented. Obviously, he's got hand speed. I mean, he can do just about anything. But like, he just doesn't fight. Is the thing.
Right.
And that's the biggest. I mean, and that's the biggest problem now. And literally, it is taking guys who have been boxed, like guys who have never boxed before, to bring up the sport. I mean, there's been so many of these, YouTuber boxing events or celebrity boxing events, like, which I wouldn't necessarily call it a disgrace to the sport, but it's just like it's not real. I mean, those guys are in there just to make money. That's literally what all they're doing. But then you got guys like like Jake Paul, which I've talked about Jake Paul a few times on previous episodes, but I think Jake Paul, he's obviously skilled. I mean, he's got the ends around to fight. But the thing is that once again, this is the biggest thing that goes into Jake Paul is that he is not fighting boxers.
No boxers.
He is fighting former UFC champions. He is fighting wrestlers, YouTubers,
from 10 years ago. He'd fight a Kroger clerk if he could.
Yeah, right, dude. Exactly. So I mean,
when are you gonna fight somebody with like credentials, like solid boxing credentials,
or that their main sport is boxing?
Yeah,
right. And not someone who can throw a punch or who has been in a fight before. Like, but get him somebody, I don't know. I mean, I really don't even know who I would put him up against right now. I mean, because I'm not that educated in boxing, in current boxing at least.
I mean, they could rebook that Fury fight.
Yes. That he's supposed to fight August 13th. That is Jake Paul's next set date, but there's no opponents made yet.
Right.
So, and in Tyson Fury's fight against Dillian White about a month ago, Tommy Fury had a fight on that card,
Mm-hmm.
and he won. And in his post-fight interview, he called out Jake Paul, which I don't understand. I mean, he pulled out of the last fight.
Yeah.
For an injury, I guess. But, I mean, I'd like to see Tommy Fury and Jake Paul fight. I mean, I think that's going to be Jake Paul's first ever test, especially – and when you're a Fury, I mean, when you're a part of the Fury family, I mean, all those guys, they fight each other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're insane. I love those. They're unbelievable. I mean, like – and so – and – as far as Jake Paul right now, I don't think he has solidified himself as like a good boxer. I mean, he's good.
He can crack. He can crack.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
that knockout of Woodley was legit. That was legit.
That was crazy. That was
crack.
one of the craziest knockouts. I mean, that was nuts. I mean, but the thing is that in order to be, if he actually wants to do this as his professional career, which I think he does, like if you want to actually, be solidified as a great in boxing, he's got to be tested. All great fighters have got to be tested. You've seen it in literally every single great fighter before in terms of boxing and UFC. I mean, you go back at, other day I rewatched the Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury, the first fight, which is one of the greatest boxing fights I've ever seen. You go out and watch that. It's free on YouTube. It's unbelievable. So in the 12th round, Tyson Fury got knocked down and he got up from an 8 count.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fight was drawn even, which is whatever. But it was a great fight, and and great fighters need great fighters. That's a quote from Joe Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs to be tested, and I think that Jake Paul, he hasn't been tested. He goes up to guys who he knows he'll beat, offer them a shit ton of money, say, hey, I'll give you $3 million if you fight me. I'm gonna kick your ass, but let's fight. And they're gonna take it because who's not going to turn down a $3 million fight with Jake Paul?
Oh, I feel like what he and his manager do is they sit down and they're like, okay, who was the UFC middleweight champion in the year 2006? And they're like, so like,
yeah,
call him up, let's fight him. And then of course they're going to do it because they need money.
Yeah,
they're going to do it every time. It's ridiculous.
Making $5 million in a span of like an hour in a night is not bad. So
but if that Fury fight doesn't happen, Jake Paul and Anderson Silva, that would be a good test for him too.
Yeah, because I know they've been that's been thrown up in the air. Anderson Silva and Jake. I know that's been happening. That's been talked about. But in the latest news with Jake Paul is that he called out Mike Tyson, and Tyson said that he will fight Jake. That he'll do it. Tyson is 50-something years old.
Yeah.
And Jake, obviously, Jake's talking and says that he thinks that he can beat Mike Tyson. You can't. Mike Tyson is 50 years old and he's still got fast. He's still got unbelievable hand speed.
He's in damn good shape too. He had to get in shape for that other fight he had on Triller or whatever.
With
Holyfield.
Roy
or was that Roy Jones?
Roy Jones Jr.
Yeah.
But I think my thing with Jake Paul is that, first off, he needs to stop tricking people, in my opinion. It's really dangerous what he's doing. He may not be thinking about it this way, but he's paying guys millions of dollars to get hurt, badly hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, and Jake Paul needs to stop, joking, lying to people, and needs to start. If he actually wants to be a boxer and actually wants to solidify himself as a great in the sport of boxing, he has got to start fighting grade A guys. Because if he thinks he's a grade A guy, which he says he is, he talks about it all the time. He's like, I think that I'm the. And then after he beat Tyron Woodley, he was like, Dana White. He goes, you think this is bad? He goes, watch what I'll do to Usman, McGregor, Masvidal. I was like, those are different realms of fighters compared to Jake Paul. Just
that's a different world.
Don't don't just call out these guys because he's calling them out because of their names and it'll make money. It's a big money pool is with him, with Jake Paul. It's a money pool. Yeah. That's what it is. And he's paying these guys like Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley to fight them when he knows that. I mean, Tyron Woodley I thought was going to be his biggest test, but the first fight with Tyron Woodley was really good with Jake Paul. I actually enjoyed that one. But like the second fight, I mean, Tyron couldn't even get going. I mean,
But that was Tyron Woodley's issue the whole time in the UFC is that he just hang out and never really go.
Yeah,
he just play it so safe.
And so with Jake Paul, my final thing with Jake Paul, and then I'll move on, is that he's got to find somebody who is kind of a household name, but is also a boxer, like Gervonta Davis, Floyd's prodigy. I mean, that dude is a beast. Put him in with Jake Paul. I mean, Eddie Hearn, that British boxing promoter.
Yeah.
Him and Jake Paul were doing like this Q&A thing. Because there was this female fight. I don't remember the girls' names, but Jake Paul had this one girl and Eddie Hearn had the other girl.
Oh yeah.
And Jake Paul's fighter got like knocked out like badly, I think, and they made like $1 million bet or something like that. And I think they need to put Jake Paul in with somebody who is good and who can test him and just stuff like that. So
100%.
I think if Jake Paul can beat somebody who is of value in the sport of boxing, then maybe he is good. But I'm still, not 100% convinced. I'm
not sold on it.
I'm convinced that he's skillful. I'm convinced that he can definitely throw down. But I'm not convinced that he is still a legit professional boxer because he went from doing Triller to Showtime, which is huge. Actually buying pay-per-views is important. But anyways, Jake Paul needs to fight somebody good, and then maybe we'll start talking about him a little bit.
And I will say this: I'm not just saying it to be controversial for the sake of it, but I think he'd get a lot more respect out of what he's doing if he just like flat out told people like, "Yeah, I'm not fighting real boxers. I'm just doing this maybe just to get some light practice or just some to just step my way up." Like, you can get mad at me for fighting Anderson Silva, but I mean, obviously he's older than me, and he was a UFC multiple time world champion. So he's retired. He's a lot older than me. I can box him to work my way up to the real level guys. He'd get a lot more respect if he did that rather than just being like, "Oh no, I'm not gonna fight. I'm not gonna fight Canelo. I'm not gonna fight Bivol. I'm not gonna fight Garcia. None of those guys. I'm gonna fight these older dudes, these wrestlers, and these
retired
UFC fighters is ridiculous.
Yeah,
like the fact that people like even will like take up for that and be like, and it'll try to justify it is ridiculous. It's insane.
Yeah, it's unreal. But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Jake Paul, obviously, he's still young. He's still got plenty of more years to fight. So but once he, all right. So we've got 10 minutes left. So we'll let's fly through this. All right. So we've settled the Jake Paul thing. We know what he's got to do. So last thing I want to get into is Dustin and Colby Covington.
Yes.
So
they got to do it.
So I love Colby Covington. He is like, he's a man of people. I mean, he's like, and his Instagram is hilarious. Like,
it's awesome.
I go to like, he does like those like promotions for like MyBookie or DraftKings. Yeah. And he's got like the Lamborghinis and the cars. Like, greetings, nerds and virgins.
Yeah.
Like, he's like a Brad or like a Chad. He's just like, but like, I think that fight's going to be really, really good, and I think that's going to be something that people are going to talk about. Obviously the fight, but what will that fight be at though? Will Dustin jump up to 170, or is that going to be at 155?
I don't. Probably at 70. I would think it's 70.
That's what I think, because I think on Twitter, I think Poirier said that he would fight somebody but they're trying to get it scheduled for the July 30th card for
Yeah.
277.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if they're going to make it happen in time. But it is going to happen. Evidently, it'll happen within the next few months or so. That fight will happen. But I think that'll be really, really big, and I think that's going to be really interesting. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing that fight.
For sure. Because if Colby wins that fight, then I don't know. Colby's in like the weirdest spot because he can't beat Usman, but anybody else that you put in there with him, he's gonna wrestle them to death and just tire him out and then just beat the hell out of them.
So obviously it would be Jack, go ahead.
My bad. I was just gonna say, Dustin came out on social media and was like, I'll fight Colby on July 30th, which is the same day as the 277 card, right? Isn't it the same day?
That Nunes card?
Yeah. Nunes and Pena 277.
He said he would fight him on that card. Dustin is up for it. It all just comes down to what Colby says about it. I guess we're just kind of waiting on that.
Yeah. I think it'll happen. I think they just got to find a venue, and if they can't get it done for July 30th, which I don't think a lot of those fights have been made yet. On the 277 card, I know that the Pena and Nunes fight is confirmed, and Luke Rockhold, that fight got canceled, didn't it?
It got moved to August.
Yeah, it
got moved to August. It's supposed to be a 277. So that leaves a gap. I mean,
that's true. They can fill in.
So they could put They could put Dustin and Colby in there and then make that card even bigger. So I think that'll be.
But at least one thing though that's at least worth mentioning is that there was talks about them doing the interim welterweight championship since Usman's going to be out, and like I don't know what they would do for that. I don't know if they would do Colby versus Hamzat. I don't know if they do Hamzat versus Leon Edwards. Like I don't know who they pick out of those three guys because there's all three of them. No matter which way you combine them, they're all banger fights.
Yeah, I think. They've been talking about doing Hamzat versus Nate, which I don't
see that going anywhere.
Happen.
I don't.
Yeah,
the only thing you can get out of that is everybody knows that Nate would get killed. Okay, it'd be first degree murder, right? The only thing that I see Hamzat getting out of that fight is maybe a little bit of publicity, which he obviously doesn't need because he's already a superstar.
Yeah, exactly.
And he just beat the number 2 170 guy on the planet. He doesn't need to fight Nate Diaz. He doesn't need to have him. If you ask me, it's just a waste of time and energy.
It is. If Nate's gonna take the fight against Hamzat, why wouldn't he take it against Conor? Put them up next to each other. Like it's probably easier for him, a better fight for him stylistically to fight Conor.
Yeah, stylistically, Nate and Conor match up perfectly. Personality-wise, stylistically, that makes sense. But with Hamzat Hamzat's unreal, man. He is a beast. And so I think if Nate would just get in there and just get slaughtered, I mean, he's got no tissue above his left eyebrow, so that would just cut easily and bleed. So
no, if you flick this eyelid right here, he's leaking. I mean, every time because he's got no tissue right there, like none.
Yeah. So lots of good fights in the near future. I'm really excited. And to all the people listening, this is going to be a regular thing. Me, Jack, and Hudson will hop on here probably every week or so, every 2 weeks to chat a little boxing, a little MMA. And so this will be something that'll be routinely, which will be good because that's been my biggest problem has been consistency. But this is going to be start of the consistency. So yeah, lots of stuff going on. World of combat sports coming up, and I'm excited. And guys, I appreciate y'all coming on and hang around after recording so we can
yes,
chat
sir.
for a little
Anytime.
bit. All right, guys.
Sure thing, brother.
See you boys in the next one.